Bedford. I am Reverend Karen LeBlanc, and I am so honored today to lead you through this celebration of life for our great friend, Fred Gifun, here in this place where his memory still rings through the rafters. And I say that for many reasons. Fred gave so much of himself to this church, from writing the covenant and mission and vision statements that we still use, serving on endless committees, the joyless task of being a board chair over and over. But I think most of all, he enjoyed the music, singing in the choir and truly appreciating Randy's skill. So the celebration will include a lot of music, and I hope you enjoy that. We're here today to honor Fred, but we're also here, of course, to give our love and support to Evelyn and Donna and Gina and the rest of his family, and to give our love and support to each other because Fred meant something special to us all, and we'll miss him. Since time out of mind, this is what we instinctively do for each other when someone dies. It's the most human thing we've got going. So let's celebrate and spread a lot of love today in Fred's memory. So a few housekeeping notes. Please join us after the service. There'll be a little reception right through that door down in the parish hall. There is a book to sign that's at the back now, but we will bring it down there for later. There are some lovely Fred Gifun memorial bookmarks, which are so much more useful than prayer cards, and most of my prayer cards actually become bookmarks anyhow, so that's terrific, and thank you for those. We are live streaming our service this morning on our YouTube channel, where it will be available later, so you can watch it again or tell your friends. And if you can please put your cell phones in worship mode, as we call it here, so we can make this time sacred, we would appreciate that. Now back to some music. Let's center ourselves in Fred's presence with his voice. So he started singing solos at his church in Florida, and when Donna heard him, she realized that she should really be recording. So thanks for sharing this with us, Donna, and I'm going to try to keep it together while we listen to Fred sing a song. Okay. And now we will have some music. we have Donna is going to give a reading. Do you want to read from here or down there? Okay.
Hear me okay? No? Okay. Yeah, I don't know why I thought this would be a good idea to do after those songs, but I wanted to share a little something that my dad actually wrote. And it felt like maybe this was a little bit too personal to share in this setting, because it goes a little bit into some insecurities that he sometimes felt. But I'm actually taking this, it's the first paragraph for a talk that he gave at his church in Florida. So I think I have permission to read it to you all. A few months ago, when I was asked to do today's service, I tried to come up with a topic or theme that I felt would be meaningful and hopefully interesting. Around that time, I attended a memorial service for a close acquaintance. It was a beautiful service, and the testimonials from family and friends were inspiring. I felt moved emotionally, but also had a creeping sense of inadequacy. I wish I had done better as a father, was more spontaneous, and so on. I also realized, hey, that's the topic for my talk, truth. Built around the great advice that brought me out of the momentary sense of regret and inadequacy I was feeling. Never compare your insides to everyone else's outsides. That's an Anne Lamott quote, one of a few that my dad pulled. And there's one other that he pulled that I want to read because I think it really just speaks to his optimism and his love of music. Writing and reading decrease our sense of isolation. It's like singing on a boat during a terrible storm at sea. You can't stop the raging storm, but singing can change the hearts and spirits of the people who are together on that ship.
Thanks, Donna. That was nice. Let us join now together in prayer. This is written by my friend Tess Baumberger. O Holy One, comfort of our days, you stir with sleep the gentle rains, make our minds pools of peace. You wash with winds the wailing world, sing our souls your solace song. You bloom with hope the frightened bud, flower in our hearts your healing rose. You sow with joy the raptured seed, plant in us sacred love of life. O Holy One, holder of our nights, you stir with sleep the gentle rains, rain gently ever over us now. Amen. Now we're going to do some more music, because it wouldn't be a service for Fred Giffun if we didn't sing together. So if you will take your hymnals, page 199, hymn 199, 199, and if you are willing and able, you can stand. And we will sing together, Precious Lord, Take My Hand. It's gonna go through once as an intro, then we'll sing the first part, and then we'll do 1, 2 verses in a row. Please have a seat. As I said at the beginning of our service, Fred Giffun made a deep mark on this church. I am in the rare and wonderful position of serving as minister to the congregation I've been a member of over 25 years, and I got to know Fred and Evelyn really well over those years. Fred and Evelyn, to me, were the example of what being really involved in church life looks like. They undertook it joyfully. Their dedication and service made a real difference that we still see and experience here. Fred wrote the covenant that our church reads every week. The one thing we all agree on and gather round, and that's saying something for Unitarians. I was on the committee when we wrote our current mission and vision statements, and Fred guided us through that process like the good professor that he was, helping us choose every word thoughtfully and with care. And of course, he literally wrote the book on our church. It's up here. Fred's spirit still shines so much in this sanctuary. Caring was the essence of Fred to me. I watched him care for his garden and his home, for his family, for his friends, for his music, for his students, for his love of learning, for his church and his community, for his country, and for the whole planet. He did all of that with enormous devotion and persistence. The reason I'm standing in this pulpit, conducting this service, and going into my 9th year as minister of this church is largely because of Fred Giffun, though I'm going to give Sylvia White over there some credit too. Thanks, Sylvia. In seminary, when I was on track to be a chaplain, our previous minister resigned in the middle of the summer, and there was no plan for what to do in September. But Fred had faith in me and convinced the board that it was a good idea to let me give it a try. And I quickly discovered I love parish ministry, and I love being able to care for people, and I love preaching. So I switched my focus. My first year served as my deep end of the pool internship, and Fred and Evelyn were so supportive of me and my ministry, and I wanted to make them proud. I hope I have. So I give thanks for their love and their trust every day, every time I step inside this pulpit. I can't even explain how that one thing changed my life and changed me, and how grateful I am for this gift of service, because I learned from the best. I learned from Fred Giffun what it meant to be of service and how to care for people. I learned from Fred. So now I'm going to pass the mic to either Donna or Gina. You guys gonna wrestle over this, or both at the same time? Okay, terrific. And we'll open the floor for others to speak if you'd like to afterward.
Dad grew up in Boston's Jamaica Plain, surrounded by his extended Italian-American family. He lived in a 3-story house with his grandparents on the first floor, his aunt, uncle, and 5 cousins on the second floor, and him with his parents, brother, and 3 sisters on the third floor. It was a wonderful community that he always spoke of with great affection. As a young adult, he worked his way through college, eventually earning a PhD in Latin American history. Along the way, he lived in DC, where he met the woman who would be his wife for 60 years, Oregon, Florida, and Brazil. He went on to work as a history professor and administrator at UMass Dartmouth and wrote 2 books, a history of the university and another of this very historic church. He never did stop teaching, as he was active in lifelong learning here and after moving back to Florida. As a father, he brought warmth to us and gave us many happy memories, from building snowmen and playing kickball to acting out bedtime stories with our favorite stuffed animals. As Gina and I grew into adulthood, though our paths have been less conventional than his, we both reflect his core values of open-mindedness, compassion, and an informed, balanced approach to life.
Thanks for sharing. Dad brought light into the lives of those he encountered with his warmth and friendly conversation. A steady voice of reason, fairness, and kindness, he had a love of intellectual discourse that was, for me, one of the most treasured aspects of our relationship, and I miss him terribly. He could also be very lighthearted, laughed easily, even at himself. He was delighted by puns, a love shared by his grandchild, Sky. I shared with my dad a love of history and a natural inclination toward philosophy and teaching. I was privileged to take his World Religions and Spirituality course offered at UMass Dartmouth and witness firsthand what a gifted teacher he was. My dad was also a gifted musician. He enjoyed playing accordion, but piano was his true love. And he played it with his soul. The music full of feeling. This gift for and emotional connection with music lives on in his grandson, Robert.
Dad and Mom visited me in my various temporary homes, most recently Austin, Texas. We shared a lot of laughs on that trip, and I'll always cherish the memory of how much he loved seeing the wildflowers. It wasn't even peak season yet, but he oohed and awed his way through all of our drives. I will forever remember my dad's kind, fair approach, love, friendship, and fascination with the beauty of nature, and I aspire to model myself after the example he set of a person of admirable character making a positive difference in the world.
Is there anyone else who'd like to come up and say something about Fred while the getting's good? Come on up.
Who was that masked man? My name is Jim Hajia. I was a history professor, a colleague of Fred for 25 years. And the thing, well, he had many virtues, many strengths, but the thing that kind of struck me most was his versatility. I mean, he could do a lot of different things and do them well. So in the history department, for example, he taught all kinds of courses. You know, he taught Portugal and Spain and European expansion. He taught Brazil. He taught Latin America. He taught comparative religion or world religion. You know, he was all over the place. In those days, the university, the heyday of the university, the history department had this aspiration to teach the history of the whole globe. And Fred was kind of a colossus bestriding the globe. I mean, he was teaching most of the globe. You know? But he was doing stuff even beyond that. He did research and writing outside of his areas of teaching. So as we've heard, he wrote this history of UMass Dartmouth, which has got to be the definitive history. Just a few days ago, I went down to the basement and I got it and I hauled it up to my study on the second floor. And by the time I got to the second floor, I was exhausted. That book is heavy. He also wrote the history of a Unitarian church. He was working on all kinds of things. But in addition, he did administrative work. You know, he was acting chair of the department for a while. He did work in the administration building. I don't know exactly what he did over there. I stayed away from that building, so I don't know what people did over there. But I guess it was good and important. But he also did stuff that had absolutely nothing to do with academics or teaching in the university. We've heard about some of that. He was an excellent dancer. He and Evelyn would cut a rug, square dancing, I think it was. And of course, he was a great pianist, and he just had a musical soul. So Fred was just capable of doing all kinds of stuff that I could not emulate. I could only envy. And with his passing, boy, we have lost a really important member of our community and our lives. Thank you.
Thanks for that. come on up.
Hi, I'm Jim Griffith. I'm a retired professor of medical laboratory science. I taught infectious disease at UMass for 42 years. So I was on the parallel but exact opposite side of the campus from Fred. Unlike Jim, I had to interact with that building. And I agree with Jim's reaction to it. I was a long-time negotiator of the Faculty Federation contract that dealt with all the faculty and professional staff. I was the president of the Faculty Federation for a while. And when Fred was an administrator, I dealt with him often. And I can tell you that unlike some other folks who were administrators, every interaction that I had with Fred was fair, kind, understanding. We didn't always agree. For all the times that I might have held positions that were wrong, that would be never, Fred tried to understand where I was coming from, what I was trying to do, and in my experience, that was more than worth a lot. He meant a lot to me. He meant a lot to us. His reputation on the campus was sterling. And I certainly agree with your minister that he is a person that could be counted upon for gentleness and kindness and understanding. And I appreciate that to this day.
Thank you.
So my name's Bob or Rob, depending on when you got to know me. I will answer to either. I'm Fred's nephew. And, well, the story I want to tell, I just want a quick show of hands. How many people know what struffoli is? That's not bad. So anyway, for those who don't, it's an Italian dessert. I guess you can make it whenever, but it's especially a thing at Christmas time. And it's really simple. It's basically a bunch of balls of fried dough that you sort of weld together with this syrup mixture, and you can sprinkle things on it, make it colorful. But it's very, very simple, and it takes like a whole day to make because you need to make hundreds and hundreds of these little tiny balls of fried dough, which Uncle Fred called struves. Well, anyway, he was really into his heritage, and he liked to make some of the foods that he grew up with. Like he came to my mom's one Christmas Eve with this, I think it was a pasta and anchovy dish, and I'm not an anchovy guy, so I passed, but I'm sure it was really great. But he would often bring struffoli and would labor to make it for a whole day beforehand. You take the first half day to make the struves, and the second half day you're making the syrup and putting them all together, and it's just laborious. And anyway, at one point I wanted to know how to make this myself. So Uncle Fred gave my wife Margaret and me an all-day training session. I'm forgetting something. Sorry, Fred and Evelyn gave us an all-day training session down in Dartmouth. And I mostly sat back. I mean, I was doing the labor, but taking everything down, wrote it all down painstakingly, step by step. And the struffoli was great. It came out in these nice, neat little squares. You can just cut it up. And you make these things like the shape of brownies, and they were delicious. So I thought, great, I can do that. And I think it was later the same year or the next year, I tried it solo for the first time. When I say solo, I'm sure Margaret was helping. And anyway, we got to the point where we were putting it together in the syrup, and you have to be really fast and really precise. And we got it together, and it was there in the pan, and we thought it would be great. We cut it up, and it stayed in the neat little squares for about 5 minutes, and then started to go like. So it was just this big mass of fried dough and syrup. It was delicious, but it didn't really come out right. So I called up Uncle Fred and said, "What's the deal here? I did everything down to the letter." And he thought about it, and he said, "Well, you know, I got the recipe from Aunt Adeline, and Aunt Adeline insists on sous bee honey. What kind of honey did you get?" "Well, I don't know. I probably bought store brand honey." He said, No. Next time you buy the right brand and you do that. And so the following year I went out and I bought sous bee brand honey. And we went through the whole thing again, and we got to the point where it was time to press everything down and cut it into squares, and the same thing happened. And I called up Uncle Fred and said, "I use sous bee honey." And he said, "You got me." So he was just better at it than I was, but he still taught me how to make it, and it's still delicious, even if it's a little sloppy. I will always remember learning that. I'll always be grateful for that bit of knowledge.
Thanks for that story. Does anyone else like to share something? Come on up, my friend.
I can't even wait to get up to the podium because I wouldn't be up here if it wasn't for Robbie just speaking. So, I'm Fred's cousin. Our mothers were sisters, and spent a lot of time over Fred's house. And I used to go there for weekends. And he lived on the 3rd floor on Louders Lane, right? Lord's Ave. We have a Louders Lane in Jamaica Plain. That's why I keep, the other end of Jamaica Plain. Anyway, we used to sleep on the porch on the hot nights. I hated to sleep outside. I've never slept in a tent, but the porch was better than a tent, so I did that. But anyway, we used to have spaghetti quite a bit. And my Aunt Mary, Fred's mom, we used to call her Ma. The Italians call them Ma, which I'm used to more. And she used to make it with the anchovies. Aliges is another word for anchovies, by the way. And it's a lesson for you guys in the language that you learn something today. I love to learn something in a day. And I have something else that I taught Fred. Not too many people could teach Fred how to do something, especially with a high school diploma. But I taught Fred how to do something, and I was always proud of it. I'll come to that. So she made it with the anchovies, and I love anchovies. I eat one anchovy on a Ritz cracker, put the whole thing in my mouth like an Oreo cookie, and I could eat a whole sleeve of Ritz crackers. I love them so much. But put it in spaghetti, and it's one of the worst dishes I ever had. I just don't like it. But every time I went over there, she thought that I liked, and I didn't have the nerve to tell her, So I used to eat it anyway. So the main story I wanted to tell you guys about is what I taught Fred. And Freddie, as I used to call him. I took my chemistry set over to his house one day on Lord's Ave, and he took his chemistry set, and what we were planning on doing, we didn't do it in the house with his mother there. We went down in the basement, under the porch, the 1st floor porch, on the dirt, and we started to mix our concoction. We kept mixing all the ingredients into one ball. We ended up with a ball about this big. and we lit a match to it. Probably 2 or 3 hours later, because we had to make a paste out of it. And it lit, and it was burning. And it burnt, and it burnt, and it burnt. We were about 12 years old. So Freddie says, we're going to get rich. We got a perpetual flame. We could heat houses with this. We're going to be rich. So in the back of our minds, we're planning the patents we're going to take out and everything. So we left it overnight, not burning. We had some brains. So the next day we went and we put a match to it again, and it came to life again. And it burnt, and it burnt, probably all afternoon. We left it for the following year. And we went in this basement again, and we lit it again, and it didn't light. So we stopped the ideas of a patent. Anyway, this is how smart we were. So there's another thing I wanted to bring up. I don't take notes. I'm the opposite of Freddie. Talk about notes. He always was taking notes. So, we wanted to build a fort one day. Freddie, Cousin Eddie, Cousin Al, my brother Bob. We had about 30 cousins. And we built the fort on the top of the 3-decker flat roof it had, right? I have a picture of that, by the way, from the Lucretia Crocker School. Do you have that picture of your house? I'll get it to you. And Uncle Albert's car is in the side driveway. I think it was a 48 Ford. Had an air conditioner on the dashboard, a little rubber fan about this big. Anyway. So we got an old kitchen table. We brought it up there, chairs to sit around the table, and it was out in the open. You know, that was our fort. And nobody knew we had a fort but the members of the fort. So my grandfather, Papa Non, he lived on your first floor, was in his kitchen, probably listening to the Red Sox game. Couldn't speak English, but he loved baseball. He saw a bureau on ropes being hoisted up to the 3rd deck. All 6 of us were leaning over the side of it, picking it up. It was heavy, but not for all of us, you know. It didn't get past the kitchen window. He come outside. He was 4'11", I think he was, right? 4'11", and he had hands like meat hooks. So he yelled at us to come downstairs. So we stomped downstairs and the back stairs like thunder. The whole house probably shook. I don't know how many of us there were. And as I passed his kitchen door, he reached out and he grabbed my arm. Let me see if I can find the bruises. He grabbed my arm and picked me right up. And I must have weighed 40, 50 pounds at the time, you know. I was a little skinny. So he stopped us from finishing the fort, you know. So I wrote a book, by the way, growing up in the city. Yeah, did I ever tell you that? I'll have to get you a copy of it. I have a lot of copies of it. Anyway, I had to bring those stories up about Freddie because that was before he became smart. He was hanging around with me with the chemistry set. And every time I used to go, we went to Florida together, different towns, but, you know, halfway across Florida. We'd get together, right, Evelyn? And bring up the old stories again. He always avoided the one about the chemistry set. And that's it. So I see people on the street. I see people on TV, different facial expressions. What do I say, Pam? looks just like Freddie, you know. He doesn't, but I can see Freddie in everybody, you know, and I miss the guy. And so we have to deal now with memories, which you'll have to do, you know. God bless you.
Thanks for sharing. I don't believe there was a time before Fred was smart. Anyone else before we move on? I think we're good. We got giggles in the front seat. All right, let's have another piece of music. So this other piece of music I have here from Fred was a recording that he made of himself practicing a song, and it has some really rough edges in it that he was still working out. But it's sadly the only recording that we have of him playing piano, so I'd like to share it with you. I know that song as D.W. Washburn from the Monkees. I'm sure it's probably something else too, but that's, as soon as I heard it, I was like, he's playing the Monkees. Interesting. Now, our benediction today is from John O'Donohue. May you know that absence is alive with hidden presence, that nothing is ever lost or forgotten. May the absences in your life grow full of eternal echo. May you sense around you that secret elsewhere where the presences that have left you dwell. May you be generous in your embrace of loss. May the sore well of grief turn into a seamless flow of presence. May your compassion reach out to the ones we never hear from. May you have the courage to speak for the excluded ones. May you become the gracious and passionate subject of your own life. May you not disrespect your mystery through brittle words or false belonging. May you be embraced by God, in whom dawn and twilight are one. May your longing inhabit its dreams within the great belonging. Amen, and so may it be. Go now in peace, my friends. Spread love and take care of each other. Come on and join us downstairs for some refreshments and where we can share some more stories of Fred.